Welcome back to the Survivor version of Why Blank Lost as we kick things off with our Survivor 48 preview. I'm David Bloomberg, and I'm excited to be joined once again by my co-host, who I have missed over the past couple months, Jessica Lewis.
Well, thank you so much, David Bloomberg, and I've missed you as well. It has been quite some time since we've been able to sit next to each other, but so far away from each other in this setting. So it's lovely to be back and very excited to talk about another season of Survivor.
Yes, because I know that your favorite thing in the world is predictions.
Oh, you really, yeah, we have to start there, right? Like, really?
I mean, that's what this podcast is.
I know. And can I tell you how stressful this whole process is for Jessica? Because I can never pick the correct winner. My choices of who's going to be voted out first end up winning. So like everything that I do is just completely wrong. And we all know this, the butterfly effect in full effect. So just to all of the players that we are about to talk about, I apologize right now. Anything I say, just take it with a grain of salt because
anything you say can and
matter.
will be used against you in the court of social media.
I'm still like, oh, it's so bad. And then last year I decided, or last season, I should say, oh, I'm going to let the rocks do the talking for me. Right. And we all remember how that went. This is who I had, Rome. Remember
Rome,
that? That was
yes.
who, the rock, though he was, entertaining for a lot of various reasons, not such a great winner pick. Right. So I'm not going to go to the rocks this season. I decided we'll go back to Jessica just with the butterfly effect. And because honestly, I was so torn. There were so many people that I really wanted to choose. And I was so afraid that like, maybe I just try. I'll just try. I'll see what happens. I won't put it to rocks. And then I again will apologize to whoever I choose.
Okay. Well, for anyone who's a new listener, welcome. For those of you who have listened or watched before, welcome back.
Yes.
As a reminder to the latter, and to bring the former up to speed, once the season starts in a week, we will discuss what each voted out player did right and wrong in terms of rules I originally wrote way back after the first season of Survivor and have been updating ever since. Speaking of updating, keep your eyes out. There will be, I believe, the plan is for there to be an update to the rules or an article about an update to the rules coming at you soon. So watch for that. But also here, we look at each episode and go back to everything that has led up to it. We take notes through the whole season. We go beyond what's on TV, dive into everything that's available that's not a spoiler, including interviews, secret scenes, social media, and more.
Yes, and you take a lot more notes than I do, I'll just say.
Yes, but you have a better memory than I do. So
I try.
It balances
I try to
out.
remember. Yeah.
I was going back and I was looking at some of the discussions that we had that I had clipped, some of the discussions with guests over the past few seasons that I had clipped. And some of these I'm going to post in my YouTube shorts, and some of them may wait. But like there was a discussion with Dr. Jeremy Faust, who talked about, he said, David takes so many notes and Jessica just remembers everything. And there was an interview with Cassidy. I think it was the first time we talked to Cassidy, and she was talking about why people should, especially future players, should listen to this podcast. And so just, I've had all these stored up and I didn't know what to do with them. So I'm going to try and put them out there.
Oh, that'll be great. Yeah. I like that. I do want to emphasize, though, that there is a ton of work that goes into this particular podcast, and I can appreciate all of the note taking that you do take because there's a lot of content, right? There's a lot of things that are things that are being released and put out through so many outlets and media. So thank you to especially Robin's podcast for all of the things that they do. But then there's always Twitter and Blue Sky. And so there's so many places that we can gather information from and try to figure it all out for you.
Yeah. And speaking of which, by now, everyone has probably had time to listen to Mike Bloom's interviews here on RHAP or read them in Parade, plus the other information that's out there about the players. So our goal here is not to rehash all of that, is to spend a few minutes. We have a target here in mind. We won't hit that target because we never do, but we have a target in mind. Um, and we're going to pick out the highlights or the lowlights that tell us something about how the person will play the game, especially in relation to my rules.
Which, by the way, let's just talk about your background for 2 seconds. I mean, come on, look at that. It's beautiful.
Yeah. You should know you helped create it. You commissioned the creation of it. So
I just might have.
That's right. So yes, we'll see how this background screen thing works out if I start to disappear into it. And anyway, with the podcast, yeah, we will pick who we think will do the best and the worst. And as a reminder, 4 seasons ago, someone on this podcast got the correct winner prediction.
Yeah, let's rub that in. It wasn't me, everyone, in case you were wondering. It certainly wasn't Jessica. Yeah, did not happen.
But yeah, as Jessica has already mentioned, listeners and especially any contestants tuning in should remember we're basing almost everything we'll be discussing off a relatively small amount of information. So if we say it sounds like someone's game is going to end up terrible, I mean, very occasionally we don't get it right. Like last season, we were both just a little bit off with our prediction of how Rachel would do.
I'm so sorry, Rachel.
So yes, there's the off chance that we could be wrong.
Yes, and Rachel was so kind and funny about the whole thing. Little reminder of how our predictions went with Rachel when she was like, "Oh, look at that! Oh, isn't that crazy?"
Yeah.
But so congrats to Rachel for proving us both wrong.
Yes, and now she's going to be podcasting with Jeff for a season. So
that's fantastic. Yeah. So great for her.
Now, before we get into discussions of the rules and how we think the players and how we think they'll do with the rules, I wanted to pass along a post that I got from Wen298 on Blue Sky, talking about how listening to this podcast in general, the podcast, not this particular one, makes them scream at their TV even louder when players say or do dumb things. And I just wanted to say that warms my heart, and it means we are accomplishing our goals here.
That's hysterical. I know you do. I can say this too. When you're watching an episode of Survivor and somebody drops a phrase that is a very Bloomberg phrase, I just sit there and I giggle to myself because I know you're like madly taking that down and like, ha, 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 look at that. Yes.
Oh, yes.
You have affected so many players.
Well, one player who affected you is going to be joining us soon. Now, I wanted to mention this now because I know some people don't quite get all the way to the end when we make some of these announcements.
Yes.
We are going to have more guests than ever this season, and it will start in week 1 with someone who saved Jessica with an immunity idol.
Yes. My man, my other David, right?
Yes. Your other David, right. Exactly.
And the reason for the David, you're right sound as well. So yes. David Wright will be here, and I'm very excited that he will be joining us. He is lovely, and yes, he did save me with an idol. So lots of reasons to love David Wright for sure.
Yes. So just wanted to mention that. And like I said, we will have guests, some of the people that you have, gotten to love on the podcast or already loved before they came on the podcast, some of our regulars and some people who haven't been on before. So it'll be a good mix.
Yes.
With that, let's get started. We're going to go through each tribe alphabetically by first name. So we will start with the Siva tribe, who wears orange. Okay.
It's going to be so awesome.
And we will begin with Charity. She is 34, a flight attendant and fitness coach from Michigan, now in Florida. She lost 100 pounds 10 years ago, and she also started watching about that same time frame while in ministry school. I like this aspect of her that, the weight loss. Some people may know about well, I guess it's about 12 or more years now, ago, I lost about 90 pounds. Now I put some of that back on, let's be honest. But, so I know how difficult it is. If some people have seen, I occasionally will post a picture of me and Richard Hatch or me and very young Rob Sesternino. You can see the difference.
Mm,
I mean, besides the fact that I had more hair, no beard, and the hair that I did have was
you were
not the
12 years
same color.
younger. There's so
Yeah,
many things.
exactly. Well, with Rob, it was much earlier than that. And,
Oh, yes, that's
so,
true.
but getting back to Charity, she said, being a flight attendant, I deal with hundreds of people and personalities every day. My job is like playing Survivor in a metal tube. I,
Mm,
I just hope they don't vote someone out each flight.
that would be terrible. Get out of the plane. Bye. Yeah. Yeah, she has a fantastic effervescence, right? Like there's just something about her that just kind of comes across. And I know another player in particular who's on this tribe said I would do anything I would do anything that she wanted me to do. Just look her smile and her
Hmm.
eyes and the way she lights up. And I just really think that she is going to have a presence, and whether or not that's going to be good or bad, I guess is yet to be seen, because sometimes people that have a presence can be seen as very threatening. But I do think that her work as a flight attendant is a really great analogy to what she would have to do in Survivor, because you have to be like friendly and you have
Hmm.
to interact with people that you've never met before, and you have to make them feel very comfortable and important and significant and take care of their needs. So I think that in and of itself is going to be a huge step up for her as far as the game is concerned, because I think she's going to come in with an ability to already interact with people in a way that might be uncomfortable for some people in a similar situation.
Yeah, and it's interesting because she talked about her charisma, like you said, she showed her charisma, and all of that sounds good in terms of getting along with the other players.
Yes.
But what it doesn't do is tell me how she's going to use it to get to the end.
Yeah. And she did a lot of talking about Tony and like Russell Hantz, I think was another one as well, who are very, these are big players and these are
Hmm.
people that have a presence as well. And it worked for Tony when he won. It didn't work for Tony the second time he played. And we've seen, Russell Hantz
Hmm.
as well. And so it'll be an interesting mix and combination to see how she's going to make that her game ultimately is can she take that social ability and carry it into her game well enough to make it work in the same way that Tony ended up making it work. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, she said, I will go for anything I can. I will volunteer for whatever I can. Home run every time, swinging for the fences. Let's go all out. Because if I get voted out knowing I played this way, I will be at peace. And that's the part that worries me.
Yeah.
Because anytime someone talks about how if they get voted out, they'll be at peace, they just shouldn't be playing in a way that will get them voted out. You shouldn't be at peace with getting voted out.
Sure, but if your stylistic gameplay is after a Russell Hanson, a Tony,
Right.
that's a very difficult way to play this game and still manage to get to the end. So that's I don't know.
Well,
It's going to be interesting for sure.
Well, right. And the thing about, she said swinging for the fences, and she also said home run every time. Well, anyone knows that baseball players who swing for the fences every swing do not get a home run every time.
And
Quite
that's
often,
true
the
too.
home run leaders are also the strikeout leaders.
Yeah.
You have to balance the two. And
Mhm.
so, some you can't expect to hit a home run every time, is what I'm saying.
Right. But I do think that she's also in a place where there might be other people on the tribe that are going to help keep her where she is, because they want to work with her too. At least she's had some type of a
Mhm.
connection or an effect at Ponderosa with them. So that could certainly work to her benefit.
Okay. All right. Well, we could move on to Chrissy. She is
Wait, and
55.
just one more
What?
thing.
Okay.
You should
Sorry.
definitely do what she suggested, and you should Google Shaq holding a water bottle. I'm just saying, it was quite fun.
Okay. I did not do that. So,
I
um,
did. I was like, I'm gonna take her up on this, and it did make me feel better. So
whenever
thank you for
someone tells me to Google something, I always worry about it because you just never know what's going to come up. But
that. That is true. But I know who Shaq is. I know
yes,
water bottles. So I'm like, okay, we're
yeah.
just It was
Yeah.
it was a safe Google, and it was
Okay.
funny. So.
Okay. All right. So, like I said, Chrissy, 55, the oldest player this season. She is a fire lieutenant from the south side of Chicago. I like that she didn't just say Chicago. She specified the
Mhm.
south side of Chicago.
Yes.
Um, she said, I already know I'm the older person. I never felt like the older person, but I guess I am the older person. Chrissy, welcome to my world. Uh, um, Also, some other things that, not that this is the David Have in Common show, but her favorite hobbies, working out. She said, I love cardio, but I also like to eat junk food, so it equals out. Yeah, I'm right there with you again.
Me too, but
Yeah,
I don't really love cardio, so I guess I
I,
just like the junk food.
yeah, I do the cardio to eat the junk food, I guess, which is not
Yeah,
really
yeah.
a good thing to do. I'm just saying, don't do that, but I do. Um, she's been watching Survivor since the start, but she didn't go back and rewatch. And she has this very interesting view of superfans. She said, I
Yes.
hate to say this, I don't like superfans. I don't think superfans make the game better. I don't think people practicing in their basement makes this game better. I think coming out and challenging yourself and not knowing what to expect, then knowing the puzzle is going to be on here and I could do it with my eyes closed. It's sort of cheating to me.
Mhm.
Chrissy,
I agree.
no,
Yeah,
no,
no, I do.
I'm sorry. Survivor is not just a TV show. It is a game for $1 million. And as
And
much as I like Chrissy overall, I'm sorry, this is a terrible take. It's like saying, well, I'm an athlete and I want to go to the Olympics, but I'm not going to practice. I want to challenge
no,
myself during tryouts.
I'm
Um,
going to disagree. I'm going to that I do not believe that's what she was necessarily indicating. Here's my take on it. And I think Chrissy is fabulous. I am so excited. And the fact that this woman talked about carrying a 65-pound
mhm.
equipment on her back,
Right.
going through like fires, just incredible. And everybody loves Chrissy. I just want to say that too. So many people were talking about her in their pregame interviews. But what I think is such an interesting take, and this is something that we've talked about a lot.
Mhm.
The fact that like Survivor's kind of taken a little bit of a shift, if you will, into more of a game show versus just it's a competition for $1 million
Right.
where they are repeating puzzles that have been done on previous seasons, which are allowing people to study and
Mhm.
learn the puzzles. I think before I analogize it to like Plinko, like you know where to put the
Right.
little disc because you've seen Plinko a million times and you know where it's going to potentially or maybe fall. And that part of it, I agree with her sentiment. Like I miss the fact that there are portions of Survivor that are just unknown. There used to be a Survivor time when every challenge was completely different because they were in a different place doing different things and so they weren't repeating challenges. And so now we've gotten to this point where people are like, oh yeah, no, I practiced that one because I bought the puzzle and I know how to
Yeah.
do it. And I understand there is a preparation that should be involved in Survivor. I don't get me wrong, you should actually do some things. She didn't do much to prepare,
Right.
which I will acknowledge that. But I can understand that sentiment where it's like, I don't know
But
if you
then the
should really
sen-
get to do that.
but then the sentiment should be aimed at the production, not at the players.
Oh, yes, and I
She
will
is
agree with
blaming
that
the
too.
super fans for production repeating things. And
Okay,
she's
and that
saying,
I can give
you,
you that. Yes.
like I'm saying, it's like saying that players shouldn't do batting practice in baseball. And it's like,
Mhm.
no, I know there's going to be a pitcher there. I know he's going to be throwing me fastballs and curveballs. I need to
Right,
practice
right.
hitting them. If
Sure.
if you're a pitcher and you want to fool a batter who has been to batting practice, then you have to do something other than what he expects. And
Mhm.
so it is on production. If she wanted to criticize production for repeating things, then criticize production. Don't
And
criticize the
that's fair.
super fan.
Okay, and that's fair. I can see that distinguishing component there.
Yeah.
Yes, I do think that production needs to stop repeating puzzles because I do think that it is leading down a path that we just shouldn't be going down. It should
Yeah.
be everything should be fresh and new and you haven't seen it before. Switch it up a little bit. It's fine. That's okay. People don't need to
They
to see the
spend all
same thing
their
over and
money
over
on
again.
new tribal council sets instead of new puzzles. I don't know. To me
Yes.
it's ridiculous. But
Mhm.
um so Chrissy said, this made me laugh. Just from what I noticed, I think alliances are the way to go. and they might not last, and you make different alliances. But I think always trying to make that connection with somebody, even if it only lasts one vote, and then you make a connection with somebody else. I think that seems to be the best way to go. And it's just like, yes, Chrissy, you're right. But it seemed like she was having this light bulb moment when it's literally rule one,
Yes. But I really get the sense that Chrissy is someone who is kind of like no nonsense. Like, she's like, yeah, I'm just going to get in there. I'm going to do it. Whatever. Like, I'm going to deal with it. It's going to be fine. I'm not going to complain. I'm not going to whine. I will take what is thrown at me and I will handle it. And I do think that she talked about or compared it to like going when she goes to a fire and she has to put her life in the hands of people that she might not even know, because there might be firefighters she's never met before that are there that she's working with. And that so
hopefully
she's
she doesn't practice putting out fires, because that wouldn't be fair.
No. But I do think that there's a lot to be said about being able to form a quick like bond and trust with someone in that way.
Right.
And so she's probably got a really good ability to formulate bonds like that. And it sounds like she does based on what she said. So I think that she's really going to be like kind of like no nonsense. Like she's not going to put up with any crap. I really don't think. And I just
that
think
worries
that she's and I can understand that can definitely go down into an area that could get her in trouble. So I'm fascinated by her just because there is that very just like kind of, this is who I am and this is what I'm going to do. But people seem to really like her, at least their initial read on her. Pre-game, yes.
Before she has started talking. And I'm not saying that they won't afterwards. I'm just saying, if you are right in your read of her, that worries me. Some other things she said, I can't wait to look for idols, but it's a beware. And so you really have to be careful. It's really a mind bleep. But then she admits she'd pick it up because you'd be an idiot to throw it away. As far as talking to people, she says that she could talk to anybody. She has this demeanor where she can connect with people, and she's hoping she can connect with them and then stab them in the back, which is the best part. Now, I like Chrissy for a lot of reasons, that some of which have little to do with the game. She's the older player. She's from Chicago. I mentioned some other things we have in common. I worry that her anti-super fandom is going to impact the way she plays the game, in that she will not be fully prepared for everything that hits her. Like,
that is a concern I do have. Yes.
Like, is it cheating if someone practiced fire making and therefore can start a fire when they first get there? Is she going to roll her eyes if someone jumps out to do the puzzle because they've done it before? I don't know. And that's where she worries me, or I worry for her. Let me put it that way.
Well, David really wants to work with her. And David seems to be someone who is not necessarily that knowledgeable about Survivor. So maybe they can hang out together and share their that would be an interesting mix, those two, for sure.
Yes. And so let's go to David. He is 39. He is a stunt performer from California. And as you just indicated, he's a bit of a rarity these days because he hasn't watched Survivor in decades as of when he applied. He's caught up since then, which we know because he mentioned it, and he said he's been compared to Jonathan, and he wouldn't even know who Jonathan was if he hadn't caught up. He's not afraid to show how physically strong he is, which, looking at his arms and his picture as he has his arms crossed, it's a good thing he's not afraid, because I don't know how you cover that up other than like with a big puffy coat or something like that. Now, this should help him in an early tribal phase, but probably not so much around merge time.
Well, and he acknowledges that. He at least is aware that he's probably like a likely merge boot. So he's trying to figure out the best mechanism by which to avoid being the merge boot. So he at least did figure that out in his very quick watching of the multiple seasons of Survivor in a very short amount of time.
Yeah, he says he's an arrogant a-hole at times, which obviously is not part of staying around. And he said some people might say his arrogance or confidence could get him in trouble. But He thinks it's better to be too confident than humble. Maybe. But he also knows there's no way he's going to fly under the radar. He can't fit under the radar.
Yeah, I
So,
thought that was great.
so what he's going to do to offset that is he said, just be kind. People will
Mm.
know he's a physical threat. So he's going to downplay his social abilities or downplay his puzzle solving abilities. But especially, he's going to be kind and hopefully establishing friendships that will take him beyond the merge.
I really liked the kind component because I do think that he's clearly had an impact in pregame because everyone is talking about him,
He kind
including
of stands out.
he kind of does, right? Captain America, Giga Chad, I think was one of
Yeah.
the names that was utilized by someone who was on his tribe as well. So he certainly has been noticed, and so I think if he can soften that image of
Mm-hmm.
himself by being kind, I think that's going to go a long way for him. He's certainly going to be someone that they're going to want to keep around up until the merge for obvious reasons. And I would anticipate that that's likely going to be what happens. But I also do worry about that arrogance, about the overconfidence. I mean, I think that sometimes people can put parts of themselves in boxes and tamp things down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Will he be able to? I don't know if he will because his life sounds pretty incredible. And the things that he's done and decided, I'm gonna be a pilot, I'm gonna travel, I'm just go around the
Mm-hmm.
world, do whatever. I mean, all of these things, you have to have a, a pretty strong personality and confidence to be able to do and put yourself in those situations. I don't know if he's really going to be able to reel it in as much as he's going to need to, but maybe he will. Maybe he
Yeah.
will.
Yeah. And like you mentioned, he seemed to like Chrissy in the pregame. So, maybe they'll team up. I'll have more thoughts on that when we get to the end of the tribe. Uh, so next up is Camilla. And she is a 31-year-old software engineer from Toronto. She started watching Survivor when she was young, partway through Amazon, just before the Jenna and Heidi peanut butter and chocolate moment. She dropped off for a while, but then came back to watch Tony win the first time. Now, before I read anything about her or listened to or watched, I already liked her a lot from some of her answers that were posted on social media, where, like she said, not all software engineers are smart. She said she's not going to tell people she's a software engineer because there's this image, but they're not all smart. And then she joked about it on social media. And I knew that my son, the software engineer, would agree with this. And so I confirmed with him, and yes, he does have the same opinion, which I let Camilla know. Uh, she she says she used to think she was logical, but then after working with a bunch of software engineers, she realized not so much. She's actually emotional.
Mm.
She also said people usually underestimate me. And I think that's kind of what Erica talked about in the beginning, where she was like, even at my job, no one listens to me. I'm a 30-something-year-old and I'm very senior, but I walk into a room and I don't get the respect I deserve because she's short, very childish face. And that's the kind of stuff I deal with too. But okay, it's not that great in the real world, but in a game like Survivor, that is a great thing to have. I can run around and do bleep, and people don't think I'm threatening. I'm very unassuming. I can get away with bleep.
Yeah, and I do think the way that the game is going now, having that unassuming quality really can carry you very far,
Mm-hmm.
which is why those individuals that have that stand out in pregame, I always am curious how they're going to end up necessarily doing in the game because they've already drawn so much
Right.
attention to themselves. And I don't think that she's in that same situation. There might have been like one person that might have described her, but I think it was mostly just because of her stature. So I think that she is the one concern I have for Camilla is she does kind of like this, and she said she talks very fast and she quick sentences,
Mm-hmm.
and she's worried that she might necessarily say too much too quick and not maintain that part of herself. So
But you know who
I
said that last season in the preseason?
I
Rachel.
don't remember. Oh,
That was one reason she said she needed someone to reel her in, or something to that effect.
mm-hmm.
And that was one
Well,
reason we did not pick Rachel to
We know,
Win.
yes, we know how that went. So, hey, congrats, Camilla.
Yeah.
Things are looking up for you. This is great. Yeah, but I do think that she's definitely someone who, once they get out on the island, I think she is going to make an impression because she seems to have that quality about her. And and I don't know if she's necessarily going to be able to be unassuming once she's surrounded by people, if that's the part that comes out. But she's I'm
Yeah.
intrigued. I'm very
Yes.
intrigued because I'm always curious how that balance is going to come out when they start playing the game.
Yeah, I believe I didn't write this down, but if my memory is correct, she also said something on social media. I hope I'm not confusing her with someone else. That she said she believes the other players would overlook her, like literally. They're up here and she's down here, and they'll just
Yeah.
look over her and forget she's there.
Uh-huh. She is like
She
5'1", right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Mhm.
so another thing she said was, I don't listen to podcasts about Survivor. Grr. She said, I just read all the transcripts because I'm like, I can't. This is too slow. Just let me read it faster. Now,
Yeah.
I don't know if there are transcripts of this podcast out there. Maybe there are. Maybe that's something. Who knows? Maybe you can have Chat GPT say, make me a transcript of the Why
You
Blank
probably
Lost cast.
can.
I don't know that, we get that counted as a view or a listen, though. So don't do that. But I was going to say what Rob actually already said, which is just listen at 3x.
Yeah, that's true too.
However, I also understand what she's saying, because there are certain things that are available in writing or podcast, and I will often read them instead because I can do that quicker even than going through a podcast. So
Yeah.
I do I get it.
Yeah.
But she still should listen to this.
She should.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Now, one thing that Camilla said is, I don't want any of this tribe strong thing. I want it to be very fluid. I don't want there to be very strict alliances. That could be interesting. And it'll really depend on the overall thinking of the players. I'm not sure she alone can make that happen.
Yeah, well, I think that she's going to find herself in an interesting spot just because of the other people that she's wanting to work with, which seems to be David and Charity. So she's already looking at a potential numbers thing, right? If they are interested in working with her as well. And I think that idea of fluidity now, with the way that the game is being played, is much more possible, but it's also very difficult when you are in a 6-person tribe, which we've talked about before. Like that becomes very hard because the numbers are just so small.
Yeah.
She also does not like Boston Rob. I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah,
there
like,
seems to be a lot of Boston Rob
there's like
references.
2 people who really don't like Boston Rob, and then one woman who's having sex dreams about Boston Rob. So we've got the 2 opposite sides here.
There's a range. I'm nervous if Camilla comes in contact with I have to remember what her name was.
I don't remember who it was. That was not a strategy high point that I took down as a note.
No, but now I have to remember. Oh, where's my other? I see. I have all of my.
Yeah. Well, while you look for that, I'm going to mention that one thing that I like that she said was, I don't need big moves. I need to make smart moves, because big moves get you. And she said people have big move-itis and then do it too early and get sent home. So maybe she has been listening to this podcast.
I think I love that too. Not big move-itis. It's Bianca, by the way. I just had their picture. Their picture was covered by Bianca. So if those 2, don't mention Boston Rob to Camilla, because that's a no-no.
All right. Well, we can move on, unless you have anything else, to Kyle. He is 31. He's an attorney from Virginia, now in Brooklyn, but he's going to say he's a teacher, which he did for a couple years before law school. He started watching with Survivor Winners at War, which is an interesting way to start, and then went back and watched the prior seasons afterwards. He says his biggest superpower is charm, and that he hates using it, but he does love people. He could be persuasive, and he thinks people see that he's genuinely interested in them. So he wants to connect with people and then build a foundation to play the game. So this is the social game that we're talking about, not just being friendly, but using it
Right.
as a foundation.
Yeah. He seems very cookie cutter how to play Survivor. Like in a perfect world, like you would want Kyle to be
Mm-hmm.
the player, the way that he describes the game he wants to play, the way that he perceives himself playing the game. And so I don't know if it's necessarily going to, if he's going to be able to pull that off, because everything he's saying, I'm listening to it and I'm reading, I'm going, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's something that you should probably do. I agree with that. Yeah. And then I'm like, but wait, he can't possibly do all of those things. It just, because it's almost like he found like the perfect balance, and maybe he really will go out there and have that perfect balance. But I just thought it was there was something like, I was concerned, I think, in because it really sounded like, if you were to describe how to play Survivor, read what Kyle was saying about how he wants to
Yeah.
play the game of Survivor. And so I don't know if it's necessarily going to be Kyle playing Survivor. Is it going to be Kyle's idea of how you're supposed to play Survivor, if that makes sense?
Yeah. And if he comes in and his ideas are too preset, then he could be in trouble. If he comes in
Mhm.
and says, these are the ideas I have, and he's able to maneuver it,
Mhm.
then he'll be good. Like he says, I can't just come out here and make a move. You need people as the foundation.
Yes.
Um, and he also showed good insight into other games. Like he said, when 45 and 46 were being played, even 44, they all acted like it was this voting block sort of game, but it wasn't. You have the Reba 4, you have the Tika 3, you have Charlie and Maria, or you have the Goat 4. He says, those are not voting blocks. Those are people who actually trust each other. And this is something we
Mhm.
said, in games that look fluid, oftentimes they are not. There is a core alliance there that is
Mhm.
controlling things. Now, he's seen that, he recognized it. Will he be able to do it? Can he pull it off in the game?
Yeah.
Now, his hot take was about your season. And he said that while he agrees Adam was a good player, he was perhaps fourth best. Now, there's a
Mm.
lot of details that would take a long time.
How about justice for Jessica? Can we just say that?
Well, I mean, yes, but did he say anything about you?
No.
Oh,
He
okay.
said justice for someone else. It wasn't justice
Oh,
for Jessica. And I'm
yes.
just, Kyle, come on.
Yeah. Now, I don't think Kyle exactly got a full picture of the season from the edit without going into too many details. But
Mm.
also that I want to say part of being a good player is getting to the end. So you can point to any season and say, well, this person was better or that person was better. And it's a debate that goes on all the time on social media. Well,
Sure.
there's the best player didn't win. Well, if they were the best player, how'd they get knocked out? You know,
Right.
um,
Right.
and sometimes, yes, sometimes there can be a fluke. Sometimes, it does happen. But if other people know that a certain person will be perceived as better at the end
Mhm.
and they're taken out because of it, well, then they weren't better because they did not manage their own threat level. And
Yes.
that's not an insult to the other players. I mean, our first guest, his name was often repeated as if you don't get him out, if you don't
Mhm.
get David out, he's going to win the game.
Right.
And so you could say, well, David was a better player than Adam. Or you could say Adam was a better player because he knew to keep David in front of him as a shield.
Right. And knew to get him out when he got him out.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. Kyle also does not like Boston Rob. So there is that little connection there between
okay.
he and Camilla. So maybe they can kvetch about Boston Rob together,
Yeah.
which I also, just to say, Kyle, who doesn't like Boston Rob, there was another Boston Rob reference when he was having a conversation with Michelle and reminding her when she had been talking to Boston Rob on season 40 and how people were saying she wasn't like
Oh, yeah.
the
Yeah.
best winner and she shouldn't have
Mhm.
won. And Boston Rob was like, but you won. And
Right.
that's it. Like, that's all that me, like, you
Yeah.
actually won.
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, I think I can understand some of the Boston Rob commentary for sure. But I just want to throw that out there that,
Yes.
Boston Rob was someone who was speaking just about that, Kyle, that sometimes the right person does actually win the game.
So one more thing to say about Kyle before we move on is he already followed me on social media, but he does need to get on Blue Sky. So,
okay. Yep. You got to get on Blue Sky.
Yep. All right. We will move on to Mitch. We need to, we're not, I knew we wouldn't hit our target, but we're already not hitting our target. We're only in the first tribe. So
hang in there, everybody.
Yeah. He is 34, an elementary school PE coach from Waco, Texas. He is the first Survivor player with a speech impediment and is also a marathon and Ironman competitor. Those things have nothing to do with one another. It's just rattling off facts. I like his attitude when he said, this is a game for $1 million. He said, it's great to build relationships, but at the end of the day, you're playing for yourself. These people don't care about you. We're out here to play a game. I'm sure once we leave Fiji, we're all going to hang out and stuff. But right here, these people are in between you and $1 million. So
I
yes,
do love that
remember
too.
that.
Yes. Win $1 million. That's got to be the goal. I also think is the fact that he was, he was talking about Todd winning China. I was like, I thought Todd was a great winner. So, I appreciate his take on Todd as well, because Todd really had a great approach to the game. And, and his reasons for taking the other two people to the final three that he brought with them really made sense. And I've always been impressed with Todd. So I support you, Mitch, on that.
Now, is
thought process.
A couple of other players he mentioned, maybe not so much, because I think he made a lot of people cringe when he said, I resonate with Spencer Bledsoe and Joe Anglim. I suspect he does not know what those two both turned into after the game. And also, amusingly, one of his pet peeves is people who always have to be right. And I'm sure both of them definitely think they are right. And let me tell you, Joe Anglim, he is really right. Right. Yeah. Anyway, Mitch also, he follows me on Instagram of all places.
Just building your social following.
Yes. We'll see how we go there. So do you have anything else to add for Mitch, or should we go to the tribal?
What I do think is going to be great about Mitch is he does really have a particular type of drive about him, because I think he's had to deal with a lot of adversity throughout his life. And so I do think that that's going to put him in a great place in this game, because the little things are not going to get to him. He's really going to be able to work through challenges, I think, very well. And the fact that he is so physical, I mean, he's done, I don't even know how many marathons at this point, but so I think overall he's probably going to be in a really great position for his tribe. And I'm pretty sure David was eyeballing him too as someone that he wants to work with. So we certainly can talk about the tribe now, because I look at this tribe and I see so many potential connections and relationships forming. I'm very, very much in love with this tribe. I really am. I think this is going to be a great tribe. So yes, we can definitely, we can chat about the tribe if you like as a whole.
So I mean, we both, foresee Chrissy and David working together. I feel like others will want to keep David early, which could help Chrissy or could hurt Chrissy. I worry about Charity and her swing for the fences mentality. I also worry about Kyle a bit, for some of the reasons you mentioned. But the more I look at this tribe, the more I think Chrissy is in danger. I just,
you think so?
I do. Even if she's with David, I think the others may say, well, we want David to ourselves. We don't want him hanging out with her. And I worry that some of her attitude that at least came across in interviews may come across in the game. Now, again, she could completely surprise us, and I hope that she does. But I think she's going to go out first. And then I think if Camilla or Kyle can make it to merge, they have a good shot of going far, especially Camilla, with the way she described playing as someone who won't be seen as a threat.
Wow. Yeah. See, I am not with you on that. I think that David is going to scoop Chrissy up. I think that this won't be a fight for David. I think David is going to have his pick, because David is going to be in a situation at the start of this game, because you've got Camilla who wants to work with him. You've got, I think also, was it Kyle that might have mentioned him as well? I mean, and I just feel like David is going to be kind of surrounded by people that are like, we need David because David's going to keep us away from tribal council. One of the things that Kyle said that I thought was very interesting, Kyle wants to go to tribal council because I'm pretty sure he was the one that was talking about like wanting to not go into the merge with the numbers, if I'm remembering correctly. So I've struggled a lot with where this is all going to necessarily fall. And I keep coming back to Kyle being in a situation where I don't know if anyone will necessarily be fighting for Kyle, or if he will be in a position that he will want to fight for someone, because I see so many other people. Like David is looking at Chrissy, David is looking at Mitch, and Camilla is looking at David, and
Everybody's
Camilla is
looking at
looking at
David.
right, and Camilla is looking at Chrissy, or excuse me, at Charity. And so like I feel like that's where the group is going to really like formulate. It's going to be about those people that made those initial like, yes, that's the person I want to work with. And knowing that David is so I he's not the Survivor fandom. He's not the
Right.
super fan. He's just going to go out there and want to play this game. That he will be given some grace in the beginning. It's going to be a problem come merge, but they're going to want to get to merge. And so I just keep coming back to Kyle, and I just, because there was something about it that I was like, like he sounds like he's going to be so great, but then I'm like, but is he going to be, or is he just describing the perfect way you should play Survivor?
Right. Okay. So I'm picking the anti-super fan, and you're picking the super fan as the one to go out first. It'll be a battle
Justice
for the
for
ages.
Jessica. That's what you
Yes.
should have said.
Yeah, that's right.
Damn it.
All right. Well, we can move on to the Lagi tribe. They are wearing purple. We begin with Bianca. She is 33, a PR consultant, originally from New Jersey and now in Virginia. But she won't say she's in PR. She will say she works corporate events. She's watched the show since season 1 when she was 8 years old. She says, my successful career in public relations has given me the tools I need to win people over, spin a story. I never take anything personally and keep going. Her boyfriend has really been running her through the ringer for prep. He had her outside.
I love how you said that. Her boyfriend.
Well, no, it just, he had her outside making fire every night. Maybe Genevieve needed this last season, and she wouldn't have been playing video games instead. Didn't end up mattering, but
sorry, Genevieve.
Yeah. But she was making fire. He got her pull-up bars, grippy things that Charlie recommended, puzzles, doing all the things that Chrissy hates. So, yeah, and then she's talked about how she's a social person, and a number of social people have won recently, so she plans to focus on that. But she also knows strategy doesn't go out the window. And to me, this is an important point that people sometimes forget, but we keep reminding people on this podcast. So let me get on my soapbox for just a moment. Yes, you need to pretend to be nice. That is one of the rules. But you need to have a social game. That is part of the rule. People do not win just by being nice. First, you have to make it to the end of the game, and that is where the bulk of the strategy comes in.
Yes. I listened to Bianca and I fell in love with Bianca. I was like, she also has this quality about her. But then I was thinking to myself, boy, she reminds me so much of like those Survivor applicants and players, and when I'm like, and I could not remember the individual's name, but I got the same exact vibe, and it was someone who ended up being voted out like third. And yes, and I was like, oh, is this going to be Bianca's curse? Because there's so much to love about Bianca that I am almost nervous that she is going to go out there and is just going to be too perfect in a way, and so people are going to be like, yeah, no, I'm not, Bianca needs to go, is what I fear for Bianca,
Mhm.
because she just brings so much to the table. So I'm a little bit worried for Bianca,
Okay.
because there is just so much here that seems delicious and good, and great survivor qualities that, yeah. And I don't know. That was I was like, wow, she's so great. And then my brain started swirling about all those other people that are like, I think it was one of my winner picks, actually. I see an M in my head, Molly, but I don't think it's Molly. But anyway.
Okay. Well, yeah, we will see on that. We can move on to Eva. She is 24 and a PhD candidate in engineering and fluid and thermal science from Minnesota, currently in Rhode Island.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, she went from being told she could never live on her own because of her autism to currently working towards her PhD at Brown and being team captain on the Brown University men's hockey team, while
Yeah.
also being an NCAA hockey official, which
Mm-hmm.
is what she's going to tell people she does. She's not going to tell people she has giant seal imitations in a pool. And so, um,
Why would you not tell people that?
I
That
mean, it is
is
kind of
just
cool, but
right.
yeah,
Wow. Yeah, I was fascinated, absolutely fascinated by the work
yeah.
that she does. Yeah.
But she wants to be seen on her tribe as an athlete while she keeps her intelligence hidden so she's not too
Mm,
much of a threat. Now, one thing she said about her autism is she has somewhat of an inability to recognize social cues. And so,
mm-hmm.
even though she's a very social person, which you can pick up on just in her interviews, she doesn't get the small social cues that
Mm-hmm.
everyone else does. So she says she may miss it when people lie to her, which is obviously a potential detriment in the game. And she also said she's not good at finding things, so she won't be able to get an advantage or an idol and isn't going to rely on it. And she said,
Mm.
I feel like I have to rely more on the rest of my gameplay instead of all these little additional things that you could find, which made me say, wow, what a concept.
Are you giving her a hard time?
Not her. I'm giving everybody else a hard time who says they're going to rely on advantages and idols.
Yeah, I do think that I love that she's coming into this game and she recognizes all of these things about her, because that is one thing that we've
Mm-hmm.
talked a lot about, is you have to know what your strengths are, you
Yes.
have to know what your weaknesses are, and she clearly knows both very well. But I also think that her ability to do the things that she's been doing and overcome the obstacles she's been able to overcome, I think is really going to bode well for her in this game. The
Yes.
fact that she plays hockey in a men's league and is also like the captain. I mean, all
Mm-hmm.
of these things, I don't feel like she's going to constrain herself to a particular set of rules or a particular set of
Well,
dynamics.
hopefully
I know
one
rules.
yeah.
I know. But I can see her being very flexible and
Mm-hmm.
in her approach and how she's going to play the game, because she recognizes she's going to need to be. So I think that she's going to find herself in a good place, just as far as her understanding of herself and what she can bring to this game, and really honing in on those parts of her that she knows are going to go well for her in this game.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you mentioned coming in knowing what, certain downsides are. I'll have more to say about that at the end, but yes, I agree with you because I think too many people, well, I might as well just say it now. Too many people come in being like, I'm a great lie detector. I will
Yeah.
always know when someone's telling me the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And they're always wrong. Almost
Right.
always wrong. Never
Yeah.
say always, but um
But a lot of the time.
yes. And so knowing that she can't rely on that, I think actually puts her in a better position because she's
Mm-hmm.
not going to be like, okay, you're telling me I'm reading your pupils and they're not dilating. I'm
Right.
reading your
Right.
body language, whatever. No, she's just going to have to take it on other aspects of the game to figure it out.
Yeah.
Now, I love, of course, her hot take, which is, I think that you should not be allowed to ask what someone's going to do with the money in final tribal council.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
a
that
good
should have
one.
no indication of how someone played. The rules are to
Mhm.
outwit, outplay, and outlast, and that's what the jury should be making their decision based on. Not on
Mhm.
who needs the money the most or who do you think is going to use it the best. No, it should be based on your gameplay, not outside factors.
Mhm. Agreed.
Yeah. And there were a lot of people who commented on, I mean, she's the only one I remember commenting on this specifically. There were a number of people who were clearly impacted by Maria turning on Charlie in the
Oh
most
my
recent season that
gosh.
they had seen.
Yeah,
Um,
there was.
and
There definitely was.
and I think this also plays from some of that, just what happened in
Mm,
that jury there.
yeah. No, that makes sense. Mm.
So, all right, well, we can move on to Joe, the fire captain. He is from California. He is 45. He applied for Survivor in honor of his sister,
Mm.
who had wanted him to do it and then was killed due to domestic violence. Uh,
Yeah.
he prepared by watching a new era supercut of challenges and tribal councils, but also watched earlier with his sister and then paused somewhat when she passed away. Um, watching Bruce helped him see he cannot be the island dad.
Even though he is such a dad.
Yes,
He
yes.
is such his kids are everything to him. I think
Yeah,
it's great.
yeah.
Yeah.
But he says that his biggest kryptonite is he wears his emotions on his sleeve.
Mm.
And in the moment, his initial reaction might be one that's not pleasant. And he said that doesn't normally come with words, just body language and facial expressions.
Mhm. Well, he also might have mentioned millennials versus Gen X as well
He did.
as an epic season. I'm just
Oh,
gonna
okay. Well,
say,
yes. Yeah,
he did.
obvious.
He obviously, but yeah, I do think that Joe is a little bit of an interesting mix because he doesn't want to be the dad, but as I said, he is all about being a dad. It's very,
Hmm.
very important to him. His and I just feel like he's going to bring he is going to be the kind person. I know that we've already talked about David wanting to be kind. I think Joe just is kind. I don't think
Hmm.
he's going to have to try to be kind. I think it's just going to kind of ooze off of him and out of him from every pore. And so I'm fascinated to see how he's going to handle that part and the necessity to be backstabbing and a
Hmm.
little more aggressive and a little more underhanded. I think Joe might struggle with that a bit, but I think he's going to be saved by his physicalness as well, because they are going to need him, I think, at the beginning of
Yeah.
the work that needs to be done for these tribal councils. So very interested to see how Joe is going to bring that all together.
Yes. Now, one other thing that he recognizes something that a couple people should have paid more attention to last season, which is that when Jeff asks a question in tribal council, you don't have to give him an insightful, thoughtful, and really impactful statement. And
Thank you,
sometimes it's
Joe.
good to just say less.
Yes, and production will hate you for it, but I will
Right.
love you for
Right.
it. Thank you, Joe.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, we literally had people voted out for that last season. Now, he didn't see
Yeah.
last season, of course, but
But yes.
right.
Yes, you don't need to give Jeff everything. That's fine. But he
Yeah.
does know Jeff's last name, I'm assuming. So there's that.
Yes. Yes. All right. So next up is Beard Guy, otherwise known as Shaheen.
We're
Uh,
finally meeting Beard
we
Guy.
finally meet Beard
Oh
Guy. He is
gosh.
he is 38. He is a speech and debate professor from California who was a lawyer for a bit. He says he learned to
You
tone it
probably should say
down.
his name and not just call him Beard Guy.
I did. I said Shaheen.
Oh, I didn't hear you say that. I
Yeah.
apologize.
Um, uh, he learned to tone it down from making such an impact as Beard Guy in pregame interviews when he was an alternate on 46. So this is a situation, we've talked before about, do the alternates have an advantage? And mostly it was like, there's a little bit of an advantage just knowing what the process is. But other than that, no biggie. No, for him, there was a big advantage because
Yes,
he was
huge.
able to completely change up and adjust his
Mhm.
pre-gaming.
Yeah. And
Um,
there only seemed to be one person who picked up, I think it was Camilla. She was the only one who picked up on that's beard guy from 46, right?
Yeah.
She was the only one
I
that
think
seemed
it
to
was
put,
her.
yeah, that put those things together. So no one else seemed to
Well, I
recognize
mean,
that that's
people
the
like
same
Chrissy
person.
and David and those folks are not going to pick up on that because they don't,
Oh, sure,
you know.
right. But I do
Yeah.
think it's interesting that there only seemed to be one. But yes,
Right.
he completely changed because he was not the topic of conversation of so many of the people in their interviews as he was when we were like, "Who is this beard guy?"
Right.
Well,
Now
now
we'll
we know.
know. Yeah, he said he loves the show, though he watched only the season 1 finale and then not again until the COVID shutdown. He also got his mom into it, and she lost a bet to him and had to watch every episode of every season. I don't call that losing a bet. I call that winning a bet. But when I heard his hot take when it was posted on Blue Sky, I think it was by Dalton, about being in favor of Final Four fire making and even wanting more fire making in the show, I immediately said, well, I know who I'm not rooting for. And I still completely disagree with it. But he had a lot of other very smart things to say. It's just that there's one that, that one really bad one that weighs on it in the balance there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
well, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say he says that debate trained him to think critically about the world and taught him to see the other side, and that changing your mind is a good thing. Okay, then I want you to see the correct side of the Final Four fire making issue and change your mind because what you said was wrong.
And not that I'm supporting what he said that, Final Four fire making is a good thing, but he did say we just need more fire. It's not just we need the Final Four fire making. We need more.
It is not fire making 48.
I don't
it is
disagree
Survivor
with you.
48.
I'm just saying that he wants more fire, not just that fire. So at least he's giving us a little bit of an asterisk next to the fire making. There is that.
Yeah.
But he's so likable. Right? I mean,
other than that.
Other than that, I agree. I don't like the fire making either. But he is, I think he's talking about, when he's talking about The Rock, I think he's talking about Joe. And I think Joe also referenced Shaheen as well. So maybe we've got a little bit of a duo there. And there's just something that's he's very calming. Like he just has this calm nature about him, but it's also like his brain is always working. So I think he's going to be a very interesting mix because he seems to be very analytical, and I think you have to be with the debate team and all of the things that he's been able to do. So I'm very into Beard Guy as well as everyone else was into Beard Guy in 46. So I think he's going to do well. I really see him doing well just because there is this kind of calm nature about him, in addition to him wanting to be schemy and plotty, but I think it's going to be done in a way that's not going to be seen as threatening.
Yeah, but he also says he's a logic bully, and that's his kryptonite, and he tends to push a little too hard and then get weak agreement. And I mean, we've seen that on Survivor where someone's like, no, we really need to go after this person. And eventually someone's like, okay, we will. And then as soon as they walk away from them, they're like, no, we won't. So, that he has to watch out for.
Yeah, but I think, and maybe I'll save that for when we talk about the tribe.
Okay. He thinks he has a surprising level of empathy, and that people recognize where they're coming, where he's coming from, and that he understands their experience in a way they might not have expected because he could put someone else in their shoes. And so he believes he's the perfect combination: socially savvy, strategically competent without being over the top, athletically underestimated. I do like that he talked about how in real life people have time to get to know him beyond first appearances, but on Survivor, he knows he doesn't have that time. So he'll need to talk to people directly so they get to know the secret softy inside of him. We've criticized people before for saying like, well, yeah, people will see me as rude, but once they get to know me, we'll be like, they won't get to know you.
Right. There won't be time for that.
So he understands that. He also, and these are some of the other good things that he said. He doesn't want the idol. He doesn't want advantages. He thinks people are suspicious of him already. He's going to be viewed as a threat. And so he doesn't even want to deal with that extra level.
Yeah. Yeah. And all of those, I think, are good things, because I think he's doing a lot of what Eva did. It's Eva, right? Not, I want to make sure I'm saying her name correctly.
I believe it's Eva.
Okay. So I feel like he's doing a lot of the same, with the caveat that he learned with 46, right? He had the opportunity to hear what people were saying about him and understand how he was being perceived. So I
Right.
think he comes into this game knowing this is how I'm going to be perceived. Need to keep that in check.
Right.
So I think that he's going to be in a good position as well, because he's had that time to figure that out, hear what people say about him, and add it to how he's going to react and act when he's out on the island. So I think that it was to his benefit, and I think to his advantage to be out there in 46 and hear all of these things for sure.
Now, another good thing that he said was the meta in 46 was you have to cut your number one. I don't know who came up with that, but that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Why? Why do you have to cut your number one? No, you go to the end with your number one and you sit there, you make arguments as to who's better. So, yes, again, like I said, he has a lot of good takes and, a couple of really bad ones. So, all right, we can move on to Star. She is 28, a sales expert originally from Liberia and now in Georgia. But she's not telling anyone that she does sales, rather that she's a stay-at-home mom. Which she is a mom also, I mean, she's
Yes,
not
right.
lying about that part.
Right.
So she said she didn't really watch the show till her son was born, which was about 11 months prior. She's watched all the seasons, but, and this is the problem we've talked about before. Binging like that does not necessarily get you a full understanding of the game unless you go deeper.
Yeah.
And as an example, she said she doesn't think she needs to have a story and she can just focus on what's happening on the show. And sure, if all you've done is watch the show and you binge the show and you think that what you see represents everything, that might make sense to you. But if you understand that you're with these people 24/7 and you have a lot of time, even in a 26-day game, you have a lot of time to talk and get to know each other, you'd better have some story or you're not going to make good relationships.
But I think that she's still going to have a story without trying to have a story, if that makes sense. Like, I can understand where she's coming from in saying that, where it's like, I don't need to come in and have a sob story. I don't need to come in and have something about my past that I need everyone to recognize. I think she's going to come in, she's just going to be who she says she is. She's Star, and she's a mom, new mom, and I think that is going to be her story. And I think the fact that she is going to own that is still going to get her connected with people in the tribe, if that makes sense. Like, I don't think she feels like she needs to create something. I think it's just going to be who she is, and she's going to talk about herself and her life in a way that becomes her story.
Yeah, I didn't see it that way when she was talking about it. I just, the way she talked about it was like, we should focus on the here and now, not who we are off the island.
Well, I think she's going to realize very quickly that you have to.
Right. Well, I hope she
talk about, right, because what else are you going to sit down and talk about?
Right. I mean, oh, look at that leaf. Look at that bird. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and I don't think she's going to be able to help herself either. I mean, she is very on when she talks, and she is, and she likes to talk, and she prides herself on her ability to put things together really quickly. And so I can't imagine that she is not going to want to talk about her life in addition to what's going on the island. I just feel like it's going to happen because she is very much that personality. I got a little bit of like Caroline when she was, just like the kind of the wow. I mean, she is Star, and everyone's
Caroline
gonna know,
or Carolyn?
Oh, Carolyn, excuse
Okay.
me. I have to, yes, I have to try to keep those, I have to keep those straight. Carolyn. Yes. And so I did get a lot of that vibe from her, where it's just going to be like, I feel like she is a lot, but she's a lot in a different way than I saw Bianca being. So yeah, I mean, I think that she will have that story because it's just going to come from her.
Well, yeah, and she said, she thinks her charm will be basically her superpower, and she doesn't have to think before she speaks. The words just come out naturally, and she can look someone in the eye and talk to them as if they've known each other forever, and people will trust her even if they're lying to her or she's
Mm,
lying to them. Um, as far as the other side, she just learned to swim, so she's worried that will be her kryptonite. Um,
mm-hmm.
but we'll see if her charm can outweigh that. Now, an interesting thing, she said her older sister and husband, not her husband, her older sister's husband,
Mm-hmm.
um, love Survivor. They literally
Yes.
gave me a rule, a list of what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, a list of what to do. Huh. But no, it's not our list. Because the list was similar to one we've already mentioned, which was like, don't say too much to Jeff. That
Mm-hmm.
was one thing, and that's smart. Look for idols, but don't make it too obvious. Okay, that's
Mm-hmm.
smart. Don't say a name. Smart.
Mm-hmm.
She said, but the hard part is she is there for the information. She is there to tell you the tea, and she feels that will be her downfall because she's not going to hold anything back. And she's going to talk about whatever happens in camp in tribal council. I hope she overcomes that.
I hope she does too,
Well,
because
for TV viewing, I hope she doesn't. For her own game, I hope she does.
well, right, and that's where you have to find that balance, and hopefully she does find that balance, because she is going to want to give the tea, but I'm hoping that it's more of just entertainment as opposed to let me tell you all the things that are happening, Jeff. If she's able to do it in a way that doesn't
Right.
disclose a whole lot, then maybe it'll just be entertaining and it'll be a
Yeah.
good time.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's not going to bode
No,
well.
which is my worry.
Mm,
Um, all right, we can move on to Thomas. He is 34 and a music executive from Texas and now in LA. He started watching in 2022 and then watched 42 seasons in 9 months. So rewind a few minutes and go back to what we just said about Star in that regard about binging and stuff. Um, he said, as far as like how he'll deal with the situation, he said his friend and he laments that we work in a viper pit on a regular basis.
mm.
Nothing has prepared me more for this game than the music business. But he also loves people. He has a tendency to make people feel like they're closer than they actually are. And he thinks that will serve him in the game where, everybody will get along. But he'll also probably look like the biggest backstabber and liar. So jury management is going to be hard for him.
Mm-hmm. I love him. I Tom, if you're listening, listen, we're going to go get some cold brew together and we are just going to yuck it up and talk about everybody, because this is what I want to do with him. He just seems like someone who you just, oh, you want to talk to, but you want to talk to about everyone. You want to gossip. I feel like this is what Tom is going to bring out in people. And you want some tea, Star's going to give you the tea, Tom, because she's going to share it with you. I see this happening. He's just, there's just something about Tom that I just want to spend time with him. I just want to hang out with him. Do I think he's going to do great? I don't know, but I definitely want to hang out with the guy. Like, oh my gosh. And he said he's obsessed with Stephanie. And I love that term that he used,
Mm-hmm.
obsessed. And he's intrigued by Justin. There's so many things about Tom that I really do appreciate. I think that he can do what he was hoping to do, was kind of stir the pot and make a little bit of an issue over here, and no one will know that he's doing it because of his personality. I feel like he's going to be able to pull that off, and it's going to be very entertaining to watch.
Yeah, that
So,
is an interesting thing where he says he plans to not get along with everyone and pick a fight, basically
mm-hmm,
pick someone to have conflict with, and they may know it or not. Um, he also says that advantages are incredible if you can keep it to yourself.
Yes.
And he said he's old school, idle in his underwear. We're never speaking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so he hopes to try to figure out where they are and weaponize the information, or if he finds one, lead someone to it so he knows they have it, and then use that against him down the road. So, all those I think are good things. We'll see what happens when it actually comes to it. Um, he
Gonna
said
happen.
something similar about taking out the number one. He's like, I'm not doing that just to put it on a resume. If I think my number one will beat me, sure, but you know he he hopes to go with the number one to the end.
Mm-hmm. I think he's fabulous.
So for
I
the
do.
go
I do
ahead.
enjoy him immensely. Well, I enjoy him immensely. We can talk about the tribe now if you like to talk
Yes.
about the whole
So
tribe.
I feel like Shaheen will at least make it to the merge.
Mm-hmm.
I think a combination of his potential strength and personality will make him a threat at that point. Bianca seems very prepared, and I think her work in PR will enable her to stick around for a while. Eva also seems very personable, and I think will get along well with the two I just mentioned, and throw
Mm-hmm.
Thomas in there too. So that, to me, only leaves two people potentially out. Joe has big muscles. That's not always a good enough reason to keep someone, but at the very beginning, so maybe he won't go out in the first vote. I could actually see him going second. And
Really?
but obviously, who does that narrow it down to for first? I think Star could go first. And I would
Mm,
chalk it up mostly to the way she binged the show and perhaps doesn't understand the ins and outs of it. Plus, like I said, her sister, the fan, told her to hold back, and she doesn't plan to do that. So
yeah.
I hate to say it. I mean, I hate to say it pretty much about anyone on this tribe, but I'm going to guess Star goes first from this tribe.
Well, and here's the struggle I have. I I feel like what's going to, yes, I share your concern with Star that she might not necessarily have the information that she needs to have about Survivor because she did binge and she just kind of
Mm-hmm.
crammed it all in, pretty quickly. But at the same time, I do think that there's something to say about her charisma, and she was referencing that herself. I think she's going to be she's going to be a strong personality, but I don't think that that's necessarily going to be a fault for her in this particular group. And I say that because I'm looking at the people in this group and I'm curious, how are they all going to jive? I don't feel the same way about the Lagi tribe as I do about, is it Siva?
Mm-hmm.
However you say these tribe
Yeah.
names, where I can see the connections and I can see people wanting to like come together. This group, I think we're going to have two people that are going to be vying for the the head of the snake, if you will. But
Mm-hmm.
they aren't going to want to be seen that way. And that's where I think we have a Bianca and Shaheen issue that's going to happen, where you're going to have both of them who feel like they should be listened to and they should be the ones in charge. And then everyone's going to have to kind of fall in line and figure out where they want to be and who they want to align with. And I think that's where we're going to get headbutting from. I could be wrong, but I'm just kind of reading the
You could be
room and
wrong in a
looking.
prediction. No way.
I know it's crazy, right? I will be wrong. So I'll just throw that out there too. So I think in that world and in looking at the Lagi tribe, that's where I come back to that Bianca concern, where
Mm-hmm.
she is going to be someone who is so prepared and so ready and has everything that she needs, that Shaheen is going to be like, no,
Yeah.
she's got to go. And I think that there's going to be enough people wanting to get behind Beard Guy, that he's going to end up taking the day and ruling the day. And so I could see him grabbing on to those, like, because I don't think Joe's going to be a real strategist. I don't think Star is going to be a real strategist. I think Tom is going to be over in the corner trying to like like make things happen, and he's going to be able to do it. And Eva is going to be kind of following along because she isn't going to be able to necessarily like lead the charge. So I really think that that's where I see Bianca falling to the side and people getting behind Shaheen. And that's why I'm really worried for Bianca, that she's too like, it's very much like Kyle. Like you're like, you got too many good qualities.
See, you're turning into Chrissy. You're the anti-super fan.
I'm not the anti-super fan.
I know.
I think it really is how you present it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very concerned that Bianca is not going to be able to like rein that part of her in and say like, you know what, that I don't need to like necessarily be in charge. I think it's just going to be too obvious. So that's where I'm falling on this one.
All right.
But Tom, yeah, let's go. Let's go have some cold brew.
You're a little further away from him.
I know. I hate that too. It's terrible. But anyway, all right.
All right, we will move on to the Vula tribe, which is wearing green, and begin with Cedric, a 46-year-old surgeon from South Carolina who does not plan to hide that he is a surgeon, which is good, as we learned from Josh. And he has regularly watched Survivor since 2000. I have to say, I did not really get a whole lot out of Cedric's interview. He said he plans to be unassuming and start at ground level and build relationships, which sounds good. And his biggest superpower is the ability to talk to almost anyone about anything and create a connection. But then what? I don't know. I do not know. And because of that, spoiler for the section on summarizing the tribe, I think he could easily go first.
Yeah, but there is something about Cedric that is very...
say entertaining.
Not entertaining. Not entertaining.
He's not Cedric the Entertainer. Okay.
No, he is not Cedric the Entertainer, but that's pretty funny. But I think that he is very... I don't know if I want to say unassuming, just because he just seems to have kind of a good grasp on life, if that makes sense. And he does a lot of like he's what's the word? He goes on like shows and he gives them his opinion about various medical components where they might have what word am I thinking of? I don't even know. But he's like kind of an advisor, I guess, for TV shows. And so he must have, I mean, he's not just like behind the scenes, he's like on camera doing these things. So he's got to have something about him that comes across on screen. And so there was something kind of like, I don't know, like under the surface with Cedric that I was a little bit fascinated with, because I think he might just have that quiet confidence about him that might carry him through a little bit. He's not going to necessarily be in your face. Yeah, he's a surgeon and he's smart, but he's like, yeah, I'm a surgeon. Okay. You know, I feel like it's just gonna be like, yeah, so what? As opposed to being like, look at me and all of the incredible things that I can do. I don't know. So I feel like I understand where you were coming at, with struggling a little bit with Cedric, but the quiet confidence I can appreciate about Cedric. And so I do think that he is not going to come in and be like, I need to take over and I need to be in control. But I think there will be a respect about him because he won't be doing that. And I can see him at least pre-merge, like being okay.
Okay. All right. We will move on to our pizzeria manager, Justin. He is 29, and he also has a degree from Yale. He is from Massachusetts. Interestingly, he's a vegetarian, so we'll see if he caves like Kyle did last season and eats meat when he gets hungry. He has watched Survivor for a long time, and for example, he clearly knew who Mike Bloom was as he was doing those interviews. Justin says his superpower is his ability to connect with people, and I would say working in his family's pizza restaurant. I imagine he has to do that a lot. In addition, he said, I don't act like a Yale grad. I don't talk like a Yale grad. I don't look like a Yale grad, but I am a Yale grad. And he said, I think that training and the studying that I've done, the people I've met, that's all up here, but it's covered by a lot of hair. It's covered by a hat. It's covered by a lot of pizza. So to me, the question for him is, can he combine the Yale side of him and the pizza manager side of him into a Survivor player side? I think he can certainly be social enough. I'm having a hard time pinning down the strategic side.
Yeah, I can agree with that, because I do think that he does seem to be a very loyal person for sure. And so I think that loyalty will definitely be something that he brings to any game that he's playing. I mean, you just look at the decisions that he's made relative to his family, and will he do the same with the people that he's playing this game with? I'm curious about that, if that's something that he would bring to the strategic portion of his game. Like, is he going to be someone that like gloms on to a particular group of people and like that's it? Those are my people, and that's who I'm going to play with. So he's kind of a mix, because how many people do you see with his type of
Right.
resume, if you will, right? Where he is a Yale grad, has done like incredible
Mm-hmm.
things. He was 18 with where he was working, and now he is running the pizza shop for his family. So he's certainly someone who has had a wide range of things happen in his life. So I don't really know, honestly, like where he is going to end up. I certainly don't think he's going to take charge either. I don't see him necessarily taking charge of this group, but I also don't think he's going to just kind of sit back and let someone else take control either. I think he's
Right.
going to find that middle ground. Just I don't know, but he seems he's an interesting mix for
Mm-hmm.
sure.
All right, we can move to Kevin, who is 34 and a finance manager from California. He has watched Survivor since Australia, sort of, but he didn't really get into it till Cook Islands. Speaking of interesting mixes, we have, we have another one here, because he has experience with basically being a salesperson at Abercrombie. As he described, the manager was like, "Your job is to charm people, make people feel like $1 million when they come into the store. Be
Mm.
hospitable, be friendly." And he said that really trained me well to talk to so many people and knock their socks off. And I will say one of my sons worked at Abercrombie at their HQ, not in the stores, doing other things. And while the coworkers were nice, it was not that kind of work. There was not a lot of
Mm.
necessarily charm going around and a lot of excitement. Um, but getting back to Kevin, after talking about his social abilities, he said he has to play a really strategic game of not being so social, because I think people can already see that I'm kind of smiley and really friendly. So he worries that people will think he's a threat because he's being too nice to everyone and making alliances with everyone. And so it's or people will think that he's making alliances.
Mm,
It is
mhm.
it is a smart thing to watch out for. Um, so yeah, that'll be interesting to see how he does that.
Well, and I think that I think part of his issue is really going to stem from how he's been presenting himself, at least
Yeah.
from his own description from at Ponderosa, where he's just kind of like staring off into the
Hmm.
abyss and not really doing much to connect with people, because he's so worried about being
Right.
seen as too social, that I think he's put himself into a box where people are like, I don't even know, I can't get a read from this person. And I think he's going to be in a tough spot, because those few days are very important to
Hmm.
try to make those connections, and I don't think he's necessarily made those connections, and I think he's trying too hard to overcompensate for being likable and being sociable, that once he gets on the island he's going to have to try to play catch up, and it's going to be too little too late. I'm very concerned with how he has put himself in front of the group thus far, and I don't think that it's going to work for him, because we know this game does move very quickly and people are
Right.
making decisions very quickly, and I worry for him in the decisions that he's made pre-game and how it's going to affect him in the game.
Yeah, yeah. Another thing that worries me a bit is how his plans are laid out, including Kevin's family tree.
Yeah.
He said he's going to make himself a family member to everyone, but didn't I just say he was concerned that he would look like he's making alliances with everyone?
Right,
So,
right. Yeah.
but he also has specific plans to get another guy as a meat shield, a woman to ensure there isn't a women's alliance, and if there is, he can be the fourth. but then vote out the meat shield pre-merge so the tribe doesn't appear strong coming into the merge. And it is all very detailed, as one might expect from someone who is used to like dealing with complex finances and managing them.
Right.
And I like that he has these ideas. The question is how he'll react when the implementation doesn't work out the way he expects, because at some point it's not going to.
Right.
So that's where, we're going to have to see his flexibility in terms of, okay, is this going to work for you?
Yeah.
Now, one thing that I liked that he said was he's okay with not playing flashy early. He said the strategy is to survive with the numbers going in and the people that you trust going into the merge. And then after the merge, he wants to control it using that family tree plan and make a big move at 7 or so. Again, very laid out.
Yeah.
Again, good planning as long as The problem, of course, with the big move at 7 or 6 is then they get rid of you right afterwards. We've seen
You'll
it.
be the target. Yes.
Yeah, we've seen it time and time again.
Again, this sounds like the stereotypical version of this is the Survivor game I want to play.
Right.
But we've all seen the best laid plans, right? You walk in and you're like, this is what I want to do, but it has to fall in line with everyone else's plans and everyone else's ideas. And you might not be able to do that. So is he going to be flexible the way that it needs to be?
Right.
I don't know, because it seems like it's too, as you indicated, like analytical, and it's all laid out and this move, then that, and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. You can't go into a game and have it all structured in such a way when it's a game like Survivor. You have to be able to bob and weave and change. And I don't know if Kevin's necessarily going to be able to do that.
Yeah. Now, one other thing I wanted to mention is he had the same idea that we have heard from other people, that he's going to look for idols at night. And again, we've said this before, it is really dark at night.
Can't see anything. Stop it.
Yeah, we finally got a glimpse of that last season when Rachel was sneaking up on the group talking about her, and they literally turned off the dark vision lens. But obviously he didn't see that. So he's still going in there thinking, oh, there's going to be some light and I can look. No, there isn't.
Yeah.
So
it's dark. Trust me. I was out there. It's dark.
Yeah. All right. We can move on to Mary, who is a 31-year-old social worker and substance abuse counselor, originally from Maryland, now in Philadelphia. Her parents emigrated from China after having been involved in organizing the Tiananmen Square demonstrations. And then her mom was jailed for a while her dad was on the run. So yeah, she has one hell of a family story going on there.
They wrote a book.
Yeah.
My word, everything. And she's so nonchalant about so much of this. It's like, oh yeah, and then this happened, and then there was that, and it was just, oh my gosh, like just reading this and then listening to her talk about it. I really do hope they wrote a book, because wow, just so incredible.
She started watching early in COVID. She said she doesn't lie much in real life, but recognizes that out here, the name of the game is deception. And she also thinks that volunteering at a crisis hotline where 25% of the calls were suicide related prepared her, because you have to get someone to trust you within moments of speaking to them for the first time. And that is an interesting view that I never would have thought of.
Yeah. Again, wow. Everything about Mary, I just kept finding myself thinking, this is incredible. I do love her strategic sandwich. I think that's fantastic. I'm very much into that. So I can appreciate where she's coming from in that regard. So I like that plan. And it's different. Even though I just said, Kevin's coming in with all these ideas, the strategic sandwich is something that can...
Is the strategic sandwich the one where she wants to keep a weaker and a stronger player?
Yes. But
to me, that's the Appendix A sandwich. She wants to keep a weak and a strong, so that no matter what, if people are voting out the weak or the strong, she'll have someone other than her.
Yeah. And I think it's funny because she even says, I don't know how I'm going to play, because one of her strengths is adaptability.
Mhm.
So I love that for her as well, that she is not coming in as Kevin, where it's this structured idea and I need to do X, Y, and Z when I get to this point, to that point. She is going to adapt to what is going on around her. So I think in that regard, her strategic sandwich is a great plan, but it's going to be adaptable as well. And so I really appreciated that component of Mary as well, where she was like, yeah, I don't know how I'm going to play, but that's because
Yeah.
I'm adaptable.
Right. She also wants players not to see how strategic she is, and instead, she thinks they'll believe she's chaotic and loud. So that'll be interesting to watch. Um, and of course, you talked about being adaptable, so that's another rule 3 there. So I do have a good feeling about Mary.
I do too.
There's something about Mary.
Something about Mary. That's good. Look at you coming up with all these little funny, funny ways to talk about their names.
Yeah.
Like it.
All right. Next up is Sai. She is 30, a marketing professional originally from Philadelphia, now in California. The funny thing to me is she used to work for NBC and was responsible for like their shows and Bravo shows. So maybe after she's done here, if she does well enough, she'll end up back on like the Traders or Deal or No Deal Island. Um,
Quite possible.
yeah, she said she's always watched the show sporadically and then started more intensively from the beginning. Sai talked about some of her prep, including being out on her patio making fire and having the fire department called once. And she said she was like, I didn't actually start a fire. It was just actually trying to make a fire.
Smoke.
It kind of reminds me of when I was in college and my roommate had these horribly stinky shoes. So at the end of the summer, we decided to burn them in the barbecue grill. And so, pro tip here, that's not a good idea. That's really not a smart idea, because when you burn rubber, which is typically in gym shoes, it produces a lot of
Yeah.
black smoke. And the neighbor across the parking lot called the fire department. And so the fire department pulled up and we're out there yelling from our balcony, no problem here. Just having a barbecue.
Bad idea.
Yeah,
Just
no,
all
don't
bad
do
idea.
Yeah. Don't do that.
No, don't do that. She also talked about being the middleman as well. So she has a similar, I think, idea or plan that we just talked about with Mary. And so I think that'll be a good place for her to kind of fall into. But she also seems to be like Mary in that she's not necessarily going to like lock herself into that. She will be adaptable as well. So I think there's a lot of things that we can see in her that we could see in Mary. It's just she didn't describe it as a strategic sandwich necessarily, but more of the middleman. So
Yeah.
I can see that the two things kind of coming together in that regard.
Yeah, and she said, her biggest weakness is emotion, and she can be very reactive, but needs to contain it. She said, even though somebody might do something terrible to me, I can't necessarily vote them off the next vote. I might need to use them for however long. But
Right.
also showing my expressions, I need to be well aware of how I'm coming off. So all of that is very good, very self-aware.
Yes, I do love that there is the self-aware. And she's been swimming every day, so she is ready for swimming challenges as well.
Yes.
So, and I should mention this, and someone else, I think it was Tom, my guy Tom that I love, talked about going to therapy before going out and playing Survivor. I'm like, what a great idea! Like
Therapy
that
or
was
physical therapy?
no, so she talked about therapy. I think Tom talked about physical therapy, but then
Yeah.
I started thinking about it. I'm like, God, what a great idea to have both of those things, because you're not just like working out your body, you're preparing your body, but
Mhm.
you're also preparing your mind. I just thought that was an interesting
Yeah.
kind of just side note that like perhaps before you go out and play Survivor, get some therapy, both physical and mental. It might be helpful for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Take it from someone who played the game. Just
Yeah.
saying. Anyway, little side note there.
All right. And now we have Stephanie. She is 38 and a tech product lead in Brooklyn. She was a teacher for 8 years before that. She loves Survivor and other reality TV, watched originally as a kid, but started watching again at the beginning of the pandemic. She clearly knows Mike and talked about listening to tons of pregame press for other seasons.
Yep.
So, for all we know, she's watching or listening now. Hello, Stephanie.
Hi,
Uh,
Stephanie.
and, Also, she may have listened before because her hot take was, I think all advantages at this point are disadvantages.
Yeah, that's a good one too. Yeah.
She
Hmm.
she wrote herself a manifesto about playing before coming out, and it seems like the key was balance. Like, she
Yeah.
won't be the strongest, but hopes she could be strong enough. She knows she can't show up on day one and tell people what to do, and I agree with her. If she maintains the balance, I think she'll be in a good spot.
Yes. And I think that Stephanie is another one that left an impression on a lot of people in
Mm-hmm.
Ponderosa. There was many mentions about Stephanie, people loving Stephanie, people not liking Stephanie. That comment also came from Sai. She didn't seem to be a big Stephanie fan, which makes me a little nervous because they are on the same tribe.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hoping that that's something that they can work through and it doesn't become an issue. She is certainly someone that I struggled with Stephanie because initially I was like, I don't know, is she going to be too much? Like, is she going to be like I was thinking about, Bianca or being, but I get a different type of too much vibe. It's more of the like star type of
Uh-huh.
vibe where it's actually I think going to work for Stephanie because it has worked for Stephanie in her life. And so I think it's probably going to continue to work for her on the island as well because there is something about her that I think people were drawn to. And I think
No,
if
there was
you
something
are,
about Mary. You can't say there's something about Stephanie.
well, there's something about Stephanie too. Okay. But to have so many people talk about her pregame, clearly there's something about her that
Mm-hmm.
stands out and that they notice. And I know there was someone, it might have, I can't remember who said it, but someone was like, it shouldn't be about who you like the best or who you like the most. But we know that is
Right.
actually something that happens in Survivor when you're down to it. Like, who am I going to pick? Is it someone that I like better than this person or someone I get along better than this person? So, and I think Stephanie brings that. So there is definitely something about her as well that I think is going to work for her in this game because I think people will be drawn to her in a way that will be beneficial to her.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking about the end game, she understands the most important element, which is, she said, Survivor is about making it to the end and sitting next to two people you can beat. And
Yeah.
really, that
Hmm.
obviously, it sounds obvious, but it's not always obvious to people.
Right.
And she believes she has the adaptability and resilience to make it to the end, and the smarts to make the right moves along the way, and the storytelling ability to put it all in front of a jury.
Yeah. I think I think she can definitely do all of those
Mm-hmm.
things. And I love that she said, please don't make me your winner pick anyone because it's too much pressure.
Oh, she said that? I missed that.
She did. Yes, she did.
Well,
She's
we'll
like,
see if
please
I have
don't.
to change that then. We'll have to see. Um, all right, for the tribal prediction, before we get to the overall, I mean, I've already said who I think will be first out, and that's Cedric. I worry that Stephanie will throw in her lot with him and end up on the outs, but I hope that she'll see what's happening and not do that.
Yeah. Mm,
I think Kevin and Justin will get along well. I'm not sure where Sai will fall in there. I do worry a little bit about Mary because just her describing herself as appearing chaotic. But I think Kevin overall will get the furthest.
you really think so?
I do. I may be
Wow.
having second thoughts on it, but that was, when I wrote this down, that's what I was thinking.
See, and it's interesting because I kind of went back and forth. This tribe I struggled with the most.
Hmm.
Uh, I think that this tribe is going to have some issues overall, but I also I was torn between people on this tribe for various reasons. And oh gosh, this is so fascinating because we're in such different places.
Well, I mean, I know I had some things to say about him and his over planning and stuff, but maybe it's just the engineer in me, and I hope that his planning works out.
Yeah, I actually think Kevin is going to be in trouble.
Mm, okay.
I think he's going to be, and I say that because I think that just looking, this is a very interesting. They're all interesting
Right.
individuals on all of the tribes, but I feel like this one in particular is going to be an interesting mix of people, and I do think that I just feel like Kevin is going to put himself in a position that is, I feel like I don't know. I keep coming back to Kevin. I can see connections being formed with various people. I was a little bit worried about, but I feel like, I don't know. I just keep going back to Kevin. I'm going with my gut. I'm just going with my gut. I'm worried
Okay.
about Kevin.
All
I'm
right.
worried about Kevin.
Okay. So, overall predictions. I already mentioned that I think the first out for each tribe will be Chrissy, Cedric, and Star. Yes, I realize I picked two of the older players, which I hate to do, but it's just the way things seem this season as I'm looking at them. So, which tribe will end up going to tribal council first? I actually think it'll be the one we are just discussing, Vula. And so my first out prediction is Cedric.
I agree. I'm worried about Vula, and I'm worried about Vula, which makes me so very sad. But I don't know. I feel like, I'm sorry, Kevin. There's just, yeah, it is what it is, unfortunately. I think Siva's going to kill it. I think Siva is just going to take the crown. Right. I think we are definitely going to see Siva not go to tribal council. That's my prediction for Siva.
Now, as far as those going far, I had mentioned Kevin, who you think will be first out. I had mentioned Bianca, Eva, Thomas, and Camilla. Of them, I get the best feelings out of Eva and Camilla. Now, I have to recognize that when it comes to Camilla, a large part of that comes from her sarcasm and sense of humor, both in her interviews and the little bit we've seen on social media. So I think I need to set that aside. That's more like I like her as a person. And I don't know that means she'll win. And even though Eva believes that she won't be able to detect a lie, I mentioned earlier, I think that may be good because she won't be relying on that. She won't be like, oh, I'm reading this person and I know absolutely. She may rely more on logic and things that have happened and things that will happen.
Right.
And so her going in knowing this, I feel like puts her at an advantage. I am making Eva my winner pick.
Well, now look at that. So this is where I was very sad because I'm worried for Vula. But I kept coming back to Stephanie. I just couldn't stop coming back to Stephanie. It was like everyone was talking about Stephanie, and then I was like, I don't know about Stephanie. And then I listened to her interviews, and I came back to Stephanie. And then I've also learned, now I will say this, I am not spoiled in any way, shape, or form. But Stephanie happens to be very good friends with someone I work with. Isn't that weird? Like, I found this out after. I was like, huh, well, and again, I've never spoken to Stephanie. The person I work with hasn't been told a damn thing besides, oh my God, my friend's going to be on Survivor. And she thinks it's crazy because she's like, I work with someone who is on Survivor and now I'm friends with someone who's on Survivor. So she's just living her best life through the two of us. But so I'm going with Stephanie. I asked my magic 8-ball if she was going to win, and it said most definitely yes. No. So I'm just going to say,
can't argue with that. There's no possible way you can argue with that.
So now I have to apologize because Stephanie was like, do not make me your winner pick. And
then you
Jessica
did.
Lewis just did so. And we all know how, I know.
You just destroyed her. You just destroyed her.
I destroyed her and I just made Kevin win the game. So there you go. Okay. That's where we're at.
All right. Well, before we wrap up, I do want to let everyone know that the rules that we will be talking about all season long, the one, are available in poster and t-shirt form. So here's the poster. You see the top of it behind me, but it is actually a full-on poster. Look at that.
It's beautiful.
And
I'm so on it.
Yes, you are. And so you can click on that, order it, or it'll take you to the ordering page, order it, and our shipping department will get it right out to you.
That's right, I will.
You can also scroll down and get it on a t-shirt. If you can't have it in your background all the time, you can have it as a t-shirt. You could also keep scrolling and get the checklist shirts that both of us are wearing, and order that as well. So, again, I never told you where you can get that. That's robhasawebsite.com/yxlostfeed. You go to and click on any of those.
Yes.
And in the meantime, where can people find us?
So I am at Jessica Lewis 89, both on Blue Sky and Twitter. I am also at Jessica Lewis 6789 on Instagram. I will become much more active now that Survivor is starting. I've gotten away from social media just a bit, but now that I have things to talk about and post about, I will definitely be doing so. However, the gentleman to my right, because I have to remember you're over here, has been a nonstop force to be reckoned with on social media, even in between Survivor seasons, because he is posting about basically everything under the sun, because he has also been podcasting about basically everything under the sun, I feel. So, David Bloomberg, why don't you tell them about your link tree and where they can find you in all of these places?
Yes, you can go to linktree/David Bloomberg with a dot before the EE in the URL. And that will, get you to all the important links and locations. Or you can find me directly on Blue Sky as at David Bloomberg. Don't even bother on Twitter or X. The only reasons that I'm posting there right now are to tell people to come to Blue Sky. So we need to get all the Survivor discussions moved over to, away from the bad place. So come on over to Blue Sky. I have been also posting, as you indicated, at least 3, often more, like 4 or 5 sometimes, reality TV short videos each day on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram, where I'm at David Bloomberg TV. Right now, they're a mix of Australian Survivor, including some, I'm going to start mini Why Blank Lost videos for that. The Traders US, Deal or No Deal Island, the new show Extracted, where a whole bunch of survivors apparently got paid to promote this. But one player is out in the wilderness surviving, and 2 family members are watching and trying to help from a base camp, and only they can pull them from the game. I still have a few left over from Beast Games, which ended. Occasional one from the Joe Schmo Show. Plus, I mentioned the podcast flashbacks coming to get us ready for the new season. I hope to get those up and running. And of course, I will start with Survivor 48 videos as soon as the new episode airs. I'm aiming for 50,000 subscribers on YouTube soon. So if you're not there already, come join us. Additionally, as you mentioned, I have been co-hosting the Tradar podcast. That's TRAIDAR for the Traders US. And you can find that wherever you get podcasts. And it's now in video form on YouTube as well.
Nice. And you dress up for it.
I wear my trader's cloak for it. That is true.
I love that you are so dedicated to the cause. That's great. So good.
I dressed up like Boston Rob sometimes, but he's not there anymore. So
listen, he is a person who we have discussed in this podcast in ways that I never thought we would be discussing.
Yes. As we wrap up, I want to encourage people to check out the RHAP Patron program at robhasawebsite.com/patron. You can get access to all the special podcasts that are put out just for patrons, plus Facebook groups and Discord, and support shows like ours and everything on the network by becoming a patron at robhasawebsite.com/patron. And of course, be sure you're subscribed to all the RHAP Survivor podcasts by going to weknowsurvivor.com. You'll see all the different Survivor podcasts there. You can select your podcast service of choice and find just a ton of great content like us, the Know-It-Alls, the B&B, Survivor International, and more.
Yes. And I would like to thank everyone at RHAP for all of the work that you do. Scott St. Pierre for all of the editing and all of the crew, I guess, that works towards all of the editing to put in all of the incredible content together that you are able to see, not just for Why Blank Lost, but all of the podcasts that have been produced and put out. There are so many things for you to watch. Thank you to Will from America for the song that was created for the just audio version of the Why Blank Lost podcast. And I know I am forgetting to thank people in particular, but you all do an incredible job. So thank you so much for all the support that you do provide to us. And David, thank you so much for another season. Look at this. It's happening.
That's
Here
right.
we go.
That's right.
Kinda
Yes.
crazy.
Thank you, Jessica. We will see everyone in a week. But thank you especially for doing the thing that you love most, which are predictions. So
And I apologize to everyone who is on this season for my predictions.
all right. Well, with that, like I said, we will be back here next week, and we will have David right. And so everyone be prepared to say, David, you're right. And well, you should say that every time anyway. But with that, we will see you soon. Bye.
Bye.